Hey guys, welcome to Pinky Tech and Review, and today I'm going to make a compare video for the HTC One and the Samsung Galaxy S4. The reason why I want to make this comparison video is because they are released on almost the same date. The Samsung Galaxy S4 is released on March and the HTC is on February of 2013. So they are the flagship phones for both of their brands. So this should be very close. This time I'm going to make a compare with these two phones. So let's get on with the comparing. Let's get on to the body shape. And Samsung Galaxy S4 is slightly lighter than the HTC. The S4 has 130 grams while the HTC has 143 grams, and the screen size on the S4 is 0.3 inches bigger than the HTC. And since these two phones have the same screen resolution, which is 1080 times 1920, and so the HTC tends to be a little bit quality to the display. It's got 469 pixels per inch while the S4 has 441 pixels per inch. And the Samsung has a Super AMOLED touchscreen while the HTC has got what they call a Super LCD touchscreen. So, and they both have the same Gorilla Glass, but the HTC is Gorilla Glass 2 and the S4 has Gorilla Glass 3, but that doesn't make any much difference. And so now I'm going to turn on both of these phones at the same time so you can see the performance. So these two phones are booting on the same time, and there goes the Samsung's boot logo while the HTC is already done. I'm going to turn it on to full brightness. So now let's wait for the S4 to finish. So in this video I'm not going to do really much the hardware test because these two phones are all good and they have a pretty decent processor and RAMs and all those things. So I'm just going to do something about the looks and the design and stuff. So first off, with the S4, it's got this big glass and the screen's very close to the edge, so it looks pretty cool. And there's all the sensors up top, and there's the home button. So at the back is all plastic as usual, like all the Samsung does, and there's the camera. It's very big and it comes out a little bit like this, and there's the chrome trim on the side which breaks easily because everyone complains about it. When you drop it, it's going to come off like this. You can see it. So anyway, let's move on to the HTC. And the HTC is made of aluminium at the back, and the front it's got two aluminium sides, and there's the big camera, and there's two speakers here, and there's the sensor. And it's pretty weird that the HTC doesn't have the home button is on the side, there's a back button, and there's no menu button like the Samsung has. And the menu button will be inside the screen when you choose things, and there's the volume button on the side. The Samsung has its power button on the side here and the volume on the other side. Well, the HTC has the power button on top here, and then there's the headphone jack, and there's the charger. There's a little microphone dot here. And basically, you guessed it, the HTC looks better. And since the HTC screen is a little bit smaller, but if you put them two together, you see that the HTC is slightly bigger, probably because of the both front speakers on the HTC. Now I'm going to move on to a little bit of hardware information. The Samsung Galaxy S4 has an octa-core processor, which is pretty special when it came out. It's an 8-core processor. It's like strapping two quad-core processors together. That's what they did. It's got a quad-core 1.6 GHz and a quad-core 1.2. So that makes it into a quad-core, so you can do multitasking easier and faster. and the HTC has a quad-core 1.7 GHz. So basically these both phones run the same because the Samsung has a lot of bloatware, like all those Samsung apps, Samsung stuff, and all those Google stuff all put together. So the Samsung runs just fine with the HTC, even though it's got so many cores on itself. And so now the Samsung Galaxy S4, as you know, you can put a SIM card, memory card, while the HTC can only put a SIM card, and it has a built-in internal storage, and you can't put an external SD card inside. So the HTC has got two selections, which is 32 gigabytes and 64, while the Samsung Galaxy S4 comes with three kinds: 16, 32, and 64, and both of them have 2 GB of RAM. And on the S4 you can put memory card, so if you're the kind of guy that likes to watch a lot of movies and you need an external SD card, you might as well get the S4 or the HTC, because it's got the speakers. And now moving on to the battery, the S4 has a 2600. The Samsung Galaxy S4 has a 2600 mAh battery, and the HTC has a 2300 mAh battery. So the S4 tends to have a slightly longer battery life than the HTC, but there's so many background apps running on the S4, they just run the same. And on the price range, the S4 is slightly more expensive than the HTC because it's got more features, like all those Samsung's Air View, Air Gesture, all those stuff, and it's got a better camera. And now, speaking of camera, now I'm going to move on to the camera. And first off, with the S4, it's got a 13 megapixel camera with focus and LED flash, and it's got HD video recording as well, and there's a 2 megapixel front camera. And as for the HTC, it's got a rather special camera. It's called a 4 megapixel ultra pixel camera, and actually 4 megapixel, as you hear, is not as good, but actually the ultra pixel design makes it very good. And it's got a 2.1 megapixel front camera, so it's slightly better than the S4's front camera. But in terms of the rear camera, the S4 is going to win the HTC easily. Now let's take a look at the closer look of these two phones. I'm going to just turn them on, and first thing you see is the lock screen for Samsung and the lock screen for HTC, and this is the Sense UI, and this is Samsung's TouchWiz. And you can see I have already put it in maximum brightness of these two phones, and as you can see, the Samsung Super AMOLED LED is working well. It's making the screen look very nice and very high definition, and it has better contrast, while the HTC is normal. So now I'm going to move on to some of the phone's features. And first of all, the Samsung, it's got a lot of features, and as you press this button you can see all these things. It's got near field communication, it's got power saving, S-Beam, which is something like the NFC features, and all those Samsung's smart apps, Air View, Air Gesture, Hands-Free, Smart Stay, Smart Pause, Smart Scroll, all these things, which is not really useful because they are only supported by all the Samsung's apps, so you can't do it on like Chrome or Facebook or Instagram or anything. And the HTC, it doesn't have any features, and it's pretty normal for a phone. And there are some features on the phone, which is Beats Audio. As you can see, it's only on the M7, the M8 doesn't have it anymore, and it's also got power saving. So now I'm going to do a real-time display of the two phones, and I'm going to go to YouTube so you can watch some movies in HD and see what they're like. So the S4 opens first because thanks to its octa-core system, but then the HTC loads things first, and the S4 is still loading. If you come to see, the S4's red is way brighter and the HTC's one is originally red. That makes the S4 a little bit way too bright, and it gives you the feeling that they tried too hard to make the display look too well. So that kind of ruins it a bit, but we'll see the videos and find out which one is best. So now I'm going to go for the HTC first, and I'm going to bring it closer to the screen. And as you can see, it makes the whole view look very realistic, and all the colors are very bright. It feels good, and wait for it to load and you see the picture quality is very nice since the phone is very HD, and all the colors make it look very nice. So this is the S4, and let's see how the Super AMOLED works on this phone. So here's a video of two of them playing together, and first of all you can see the yellow on the S4 is much brighter. So it's much brighter than the HTC. The HTC looks more dull. But then both of them look very nice, and the S4 only has better color, so they're both almost the same. So I'm going to play them at the same time to see their differences. The HTC is a little bit lag because the video player doesn't support it, and I'm kind of using it at the maximum.
May have a violent side, but life flows from these infernos.
So maybe the camera can't see it, but the S4 has a clearer screen. So thanks to the AMOLED, the S4's display looks better than the HTC.
Creating the ideal conditions for grasses to flourish on an immense.
And now I'm going to do a speaker sound comparison video for these two phones, because I had to do it because they both have very different kind of speaker setups, and the HTC's got a Beats Audio stereo speakers which has two speakers here, and the S4 has a big rear speaker at the back. Here we go. Let's start with the HTC first. So this is a song from Dr. Dre, and if I put it closer to the mic, you can actually hear the bass coming out, so listen close.
But I got the hookup with somebody who knows how to get in contact with it.
Get him like this and like that, let him know that I'm looking for a big fat dope sack. What is the spin, so let's crush it.
And so is this song, you can also hear the bass coming out if I put it closer.
As the sea was ruled by the prophet of old.
So if you come to think of it, the S4 actually has a clearer sound than the HTC when you're at full blast. Because when you open the HTC's volume to full blast, the sound starts to get distorted like all the other iPhone models, because the speaker can't handle the bass because it's too much. While the S4, it doesn't need to handle the bass because the speaker doesn't have any bass, so you get a clearer sound from it. Let me sum it up. If you are the kind of guy that doesn't like to use a phone to the max and like something cheaper, best get the HTC. But if you like the camera and you like ease of use, like can use it easier, the S4 is going to be your best choice because it's very easy to use. The user interface is easier, while the HTC is a little bit more complicated, but when you get used to it, it's going to be very good. And for the camera, you're going to get the S4. But if you like something that's rare and less seen on the streets, the HTC is very rare. No one uses it along, and when you go outside, you see everyone's going to be holding Samsung's phone, and that makes you look boring if you get the S4. So in my opinion, I choose the HTC